What happens when a quiet black woman is thrown out of a diner for simply asking for tea, only for her husband to show up in a military tank? What followed left the whole town speechless. Let me tell you how my peaceful Saturday afternoon got flipped like a cheap pancake by folks who still think the world spins backward. It started with books. That's right, books. See, I volunteer at the East Side Public Library every Saturday. Teach high school kids how to write essays that actually mean something. I bring snacks, stories, and patience. Today, I lugged a box of books. Classic black authors, science, even SAT prep. Figured I'd grab a little something to eat after, treat myself for doing good. That's when I walked into Billy's diner. Now, Billy sits right on Main and 3rd. Neon sign out front, peeling vinyl booths inside, and a jukebox that probably hasn't played a note since Marvin Gaye asked what's going on. The type of place where folks come for home cooking and leave with heartburn and gossip. I walked in holding my box like a baby, wore my navy sweater, pearl earrings, sensible shoes, looked like someone's favorite auntie, which I proudly am. Took the window booth, smiled at the old man sipping coffee across the aisle. He gave me a nod. Civil. Sat down. Picked up the menu. Nothing fancy. Grits, pie, sweet tea. I wasn't there for the ambiance. I was hungry and tired. A blonde waitress with a name tag that read Trisha looked at me once, blinked, then kept walking. I waited. 5 minutes. 10. Trisha came back, poured coffee for a couple in the next booth, and completely skipped me like I was furniture. No eye contact, nothing. Now, I'm not quick to assume, but I'm not slow either. I raised my hand gently. "Excuse me," I said. "Could I get a lemon tea and maybe that sweet potato pie?" She turned her head like I'd sneezed on the silverware. Actually, we're not serving right now," she said. Funny. Real funny. Since she just took 3 orders and refilled coffee like she was running a caffeine marathon. I sat there, blinking. "Not serving?" I asked. "That new policy, or just for me?" Before she could spit out another word, a man stepped out from the kitchen. Stocky, red-faced, shirt buttons clinging on for dear life. His name tag read, Manager. He looked at me like I'd walked in tracking mud. "Ma'am, we're going to have to ask you to leave," he said, slow and stern, like I was about to start something. I laughed. Loud. "Leave? I've been sitting here waiting for a cup of tea. You all serve everyone else, but I get shown the door?" He nodded like it made perfect sense. "This is a family establishment," he said. Ah, there it was. That special code language folks like him love to use. Family establishment. Like my presence somehow disrupted the balance of their blessed gravy. A young man in a baseball cap, 2 booths down, muttered loud enough to hear, "Should have gone to that chicken place down the road." I turned to him, smiled. "I came here for pie, but thanks for the suggestion." He smirked like he'd just scored a touchdown. Now, I could have walked out, could have held my head high and just let it be. But something in me, maybe my grandmother's fire, maybe just the long string of moments like this that black folks learn to swallow, snapped like a dry twig. I stood up, calm, deliberate. Reached into the box and pulled out one of the books, held it in my hand like proof. "These books? I bring these every Saturday to the library down the street. For your kids, for your neighbors' kids. I come here after spending hours teaching for free, and I still get treated like an uninvited guest at my own table." Nobody said a word. Even Trisha looked nervous now, like maybe she realized the lemonade wasn't worth the shame. I placed the book, Their eyes were watching God, right on the counter. If y'all ever get tired of serving up judgment with your mashed potatoes, maybe pick this up. I walked out. Not hurried, not defeated, just done. The sun was starting to set, gold light spilling over the sidewalk like a slow applause. I sat on the bench outside, that box of books beside me like loyal witnesses. My stomach growled, but my pride stood tall. I pulled out my phone. My hands shook, not from fear, but fury so sharp it could slice marble. I hit the call button. He answered before the second ring. "Hey, sweetheart," he said, voice low and warm. I didn't cry. I told the story the way it happened. Quiet, clear, every word like a nail in wood. He didn't interrupt, just listened. When I hung up, I sat there a while longer. The town moved around me. Cars passed, lights flickered on. I was just another black woman on a bench with books and a story no one wanted to hear inside. But let me tell you something. What happened next changed everything. You do not want to miss how this unfolds. Stay with me. Now let me say this plain. I didn't marry a quiet man. Harold Lawson doesn't yell, doesn't bluff. He doesn't show his hand until the game's already over. But when Harold moves, believe me, the earth leans in. So when I sat on that bench, still tasting bitterness instead of sweet potato pie, calling him wasn't just venting. It was setting something in motion, a silent storm kind of motion. I was still there when the humming began. At first I thought it was a truck, but this hum was deeper, not in your ears, down in your bones, like a church organ in a thunderstorm. People on the street paused, heads turned, phones came out. That's when I saw it, coming up Main like it owned the pavement. Tank, not a metaphor, not a toy, a real green, government-issued, tracked military tank. You ever watch a crowd flip from curious to nervous in 5 seconds? Parents pulled their kids close, waiters peeked from behind blinds, and Billy's diner froze like mannequins. Trisha nearly dropped her tray. The manager looked like someone replaced his gravy with ice water. The tank rolled up and stopped, right in front of Billy's. I didn't move, just sat and watched. The top hatch opened. Out stepped Harold. 6'4", boots polished, jacket zipped to the chin, calm as Sunday. He climbed down like he was stepping off our porch, and everything slowed. No one was eating anymore. No one scrolling, just watching. Harold walked toward the diner like he had reservations. When he opened the door, the bell chimed soft like nothing unusual was happening, except everything was. Trisha stepped back. That kid in the baseball cap vanished, slid out like smoke. The manager stood near the register, stiff, lips twitching like they were reconsidering employment. Harold stopped. "I'd like to speak to the person in charge," he said, calm, clear. The manager stepped up, chin high like he had something to prove. "I'm the manager," he said. "What's the issue?" Harold raised one eyebrow. "That's all. My wife was denied service here. Public restaurant. No signs, no explanation. Unless her skin didn't match your menu." Manager coughed. "We reserve the right to—" Harold didn't flinch. "Let's not pretend. We both know what happened." He pulled out a black and silver badge. Department of Defense. Special Operations Liaison. "I came straight from the base. The tank's legal, registered. I'm not here to intimidate. I'm here for accountability." Silence. You could hear the overhead lights flicker. Someone coughed. Trisha looked ready to disappear into the floor. Then Harold did something I won't forget. He walked to the counter, picked up the book I left behind. Their eyes were watching God, and held it up. "My wife brought this for your kids. She volunteers every week, gives her time, her energy, her love. She doesn't ask for applause, but she deserves respect. She didn't wander in off the wrong sidewalk. She walked in after lifting up your community. He set the book down. She came in for tea and pie, left with humiliation. Now, you decide how this ends. Then he turned and walked out, calm, controlled, like a man who knows the weight of silence. Outside, the street wasn't quiet anymore. A small crowd had gathered, neighbors, students, even folks who were inside the diner, now standing outside, phones up, lips tight, not mocking, not laughing, just watching. Harold looked at me, eyes soft. "You all right?" he asked. I nodded. "Better now?" He didn't smile, just placed his hand on my shoulder, firm, steady, reassuring. Then something shifted. The diner door creaked open. Tricia stepped out, face flushed, hands clenched. She didn't speak, just stood there like she wanted to vanish. The manager stayed inside, behind glass, behind fear. I looked around, black, white, old, young, all standing still, watching, waiting. The rumble of the tank still echoed down the street. Not loud, not angry, just present. Like a warning, like a reminder. A reminder that sometimes you don't need to raise your voice. You just need to show up. This is it. The climax. Everything you've been waiting for is right here. Stay with me to see how I stood my ground and how the world answered. You ever watch a man stand so still that the whole world bends around him? That was Harold, right there on the sidewalk in front of Billy's diner. No yelling, no chest thumping, just presence. Heavy, deliberate, undeniable. The crowd had thickened. People whispering, phones up, recording like the entire town finally woke up and realized something sacred had been disturbed. Not just me being refused a seat. Number this was about all the times folks like me got turned away, talked down to, or just plain erased like we weren't part of the same country, the same tax bracket, the same human family. And now, there stood a man who didn't just carry weight, he wore it. On his chest. Harold unzipped his jacket, slow, precise, and revealed the patch stitched over his heart. Lieutenant Colonel Harold Lawson, U.S. Army, retired command and civil defense liaison gasps. You could hear them ripple like wind through dry leaves. Some folks squinted at the embroidery like it might vanish if they blinked. A few older men nodded. One woman near the back murmured, "That's her husband?" Like she just witnessed a plot twist on national television. Harold didn't look around. He didn't play to the audience. He turned back toward Billy's door. Not barging in, he didn't need to. His words had already cracked their windows. Then the unexpected happened. The manager stepped outside. Now I'm not here to rewrite anyone's character arc, but let's just say the man looked like he'd swallowed a pocket of regret. His hands were shaking slightly, tucked into his apron. He didn't say a word at first. Just scanned the crowd, searching for sympathy and finding none. Finally, he cleared his throat. "Sir," he said, addressing Harold like he was both trying not to provoke him and trying not to choke on the title. "I didn't know. I didn't know who she was." "That's the problem," he said. "You shouldn't have to know someone's resume to treat them with respect." The manager glanced at me, couldn't hold my eyes for long. "She's welcome any time," he added. We apologize." Harold stepped aside, and for a second the man looked like he might bolt. But instead, he stood there, awkward, sweating, realizing too late that this moment wasn't just about his job, it was about his reflection. I stepped forward, not because I needed closure, not because I needed a seat, but because I wanted him to see what dignity looks like after you've tried to erase it. "You can keep the pie," I said. Just tell your staff to serve everyone like their mother's watching. Then came the sound, not clapping, not cheering, but that deep, affirming hum black folks make when something hits home. That, that, say that she ain't lying. I turned and faced the people. Young ones still holding their phones, older ones nodding like they'd lived a version of this moment 100 times before. A local reporter, some stringy-haired kid with two big glasses, stepped forward and asked, "Do you mind telling us who you are?" I raised an eyebrow. "I'm a librarian," I said, "and a wife, and a woman who doesn't get quiet just because someone's uncomfortable." Harold looked at me then, and for the first time that day, he smiled. Not wide, just enough. Like he'd always known I didn't need rescuing. I just needed a witness. By the next morning, that video had gone viral. Headlines read, "Black woman denied service, husband arrives in military vehicle." Veteran calls out restaurant's bias without saying a word. Pie refused, dignity delivered. The mayor reached out. So did the local school board. Invitations to speak, to teach, to train staff on equity, on respect, on decency. Isn't that something? You get kicked out for asking for tea, and next thing you know, they're begging you to lead a workshop on how not to be terrible. But the real win wasn't the spotlight. It wasn't the interviews or the free pie coupon someone mailed me out of guilt. It was the kids. The following Saturday, I walked into the library and found the reading room packed. Students, parents, even a few seniors who hadn't cracked a book since the Nixon era. All waiting, some holding copies of the book I left behind. One young girl, probably 12, whispered, "That was you, right? In the video?" I nodded. She smiled, big and bright. "That was fire," she said. And while I didn't use the word myself, I knew what she meant. That wasn't just fire. That was fuel. For every young person who watched that video and saw more than just a woman standing up for herself, they saw what it means to stand up and stay standing. And Harold? He didn't roll through town in that tank again. He didn't have to, because once folks knew who he was and who I was, they stopped looking at us like strangers and started looking at themselves. So no, I didn't get my tea and pie that day. But I got my voice heard, and sometimes that